Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri. I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Florian Gamper, an interim CDO, fractional manager, and technical advisor who's been freelancing for more than 12 years. So, welcome, Florian.
Hi, Yuri.
Let's talk about the easiest question. So, what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
There are several challenging parts, but one of the most is to stay calm when you haven't got a project. That's like when fear kicks in that you will never get a new one or something, and then something comes around the corner. But that's one of the things that I think is the challenge. The most challenging part is to stay calm and say like, okay, it's fine. That's
I
just how
know
it is.
that I know that experienced freelancers always have jobs. Like just always. Even though like it might seem not that, but something as you told, something's always coming around the corner. But how do you deal with this, waiting moment?
One thing is get yourself a buffer. So if you earn that money, don't try to spend all on. If you save a lot, so that you have at least 6 months of space where you can say like, okay, if nothing happens or if the market gets low, I'm not bound to immediately find something new just to pay rent or things that like relaxes a lot. So that's the least amount of money that you should have always in the bank is 6 months should be there where you say like, okay, I got sick or something and I don't have to mind.
Does it mean that sometimes you can look for a job for 6 months, or is just to be totally safe?
No, that's so it's not the intention of like not working for 6 months, at least in my case. But it's just like peace of mind. It's like to say like even if
Yeah,
nothing happens, currently the market was very slow.
yeah.
But even if nothing happens, I don't have to fear about not being able to pay rent or something. So you should, and so 6 months for me is like the lowest where it should be, because that actually gives you peace of mind.
And what is the most time-consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer?
Taxes.
Taxes in Germany. You
Yes,
wanted to add, yes.
I don't know if it's the most time consuming. It's just the most annoying.
But why? Tell me more a little about that.
So there is a lot of stuff that you can deduct. So you get money back. You don't pay taxes for. So and you pick up all the bills and things and then make it proper, and you have to scan them and send it to your tax attorney. So that is that's taking some time, and you have to always figure out like, okay, is that something that I can deduct? Is you have to take care that you get all the receipts. um the whole that a lot of companies are not sending them to them, but you have to get them out of their portal, so you have to log in there, you have to log in there, and then that just takes an enormous amount of time where you think like that is kind of useless. There is some software that helps you. There's Get My Invoices and things, but like Get My Invoices, usually you need to give your credentials to them. That's also something where I, at least from a security standpoint, say no to. So I still do it by myself, by hand, and that just takes time.
Totally. And what is the most nerve-consuming thing?
The most nerve-consuming thing. Taxes. No, no. So when I was at the beginning of my, so it for me that changed in between the last years. At the beginning, um a, a lot of it was me thinking about if I'm actually able to do the job when you start something, because it usually comes as a firefighter
Mhm.
and you're not exactly sure what you get into. And there was kind of an anxiety of what I will actually see there, because you only know that after a month in, and then the question, can you solve that?
Mm.
So that had not nerving, but more kind of an anxiety type of situation when projects started. When you do this more often, that softens. So that's no longer the most nerving or like anxiety moment. Now it's more when people can't decide. So when you say like, look, we put the numbers in, here's the stuff, and then you have people that are actually not good at taking decisions, and you are not the person to do them, and then you wait for that, and you think like, we're losing time, and all the numbers is there. If you have any questions, come to me and ask. And some people just have to let this lay around for a week or two and see if I get an idea, and I think like, no, we don't have. As I said, like often as an interim CTO, you come into a position where there's actually a lot of stuff to do maybe immediately because they are having a hard time. And they're this kind of like, I'm not sure. I have this feeling that it could be. And so like, here is the numbers. Let's take logic and do something, but let's not just wait till it dies.
Do you often have to motivate them to take decisions?
Luckily not. So most of the time, numbers and facts speak for themselves. But sometimes it is that way. It is that way, especially if it goes against some beliefs, and then you have to work on them, on how to change their beliefs.
I'm sure that now you have experience to solve any kind of problems, but did you ever have this project when you came in and understood that I have no ideas what to do?
Not that much. I'm not in coding anymore, so I'm more. I think that would be a case when I would be coding and you come to something and it's like, okay, we have this 3D thing, something, and that has to be solved. As I'm more into leadership and processes, that's usually a case of looking at it, finding the low-hanging fruits, and start working with the people, getting the trust, and then change stuff, and then experimenting with the people on how to make that work for them. So there's usually not a big thing. Nothing that you can't solve that way. I had a project in recent years where I left after a month because I could not solve it, but that was because number one, they were not honest to me about what the project is, and there were several from other leadership in that company, several hidden agendas that had nothing to do with the problem. And they were actively sabotaging nearly everything because they wanted something different, but were forced to do that, and they didn't want to do it.
I got it. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to find with all those internal things.
And that was something that I actually couldn't solve because doing the right thing was nothing that they wanted.
Yeah.
And then I said after a month, look, I do good what's happening here, but that's not my thing. And then I left.
By the way, talking about this case, sometimes I hear that freelancers are like, I don't really like this project, but they're paying money, so I keep delivering what they want. Do you do this kind of projects when you don't really like, but they are still paying good money?
So number one, a freelancer should always help us to do what we want, regardless if he likes the project or not. Not do what I, don't get me wrong, it's not like do what I say, but help me do what I want to achieve. That's a different thing. I think in the freelance era itself, that's a touching question, because for me, I have the wonderful position that I have in the last years, like put some buffer back so I can say no to stuff that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
But if you, for example, start at the beginning and you need to build that buffer, sure, you're sometimes in projects that you don't like and you do it for the money. But that's also one of the reasons why I can hardly advise, I can advise in building that buffer, so that you have the possibility to say no to some stuff where you think like, I don't want to do this because I don't know, the people, I didn't like them in the interview, and the project is something that I can't stand for, um, or something else, so that you can say no to that and say like, I don't mind if then there's a month of nothing, I go and take a holiday and come back and something else will come along.
Yeah, totally agree. And as a freelancer, have you ever felt professional loneliness?
No, but that is more because I have so many peers in Berlin that I like that I met
Mm,
that I didn't have this. So when I worked at DV, there were several people that I hired. We still meet once a month for lunch. There are other people that I meet. So I go for lunch with some of my peers at least once a week.
wow, that's
Um,
great.
so, but I can imagine that, especially when you're in a remote situation, that it sometimes can feel lonely. But what I, as a leader, always try to do is remote companies need more social interaction that happens remote, and that's what a lot of companies forget. So, and I'm trying to incorporate that into the time schedule where is time. For example, what I usually do is I have in the morning a coffee break where I sit here with the coffee mug, really with the coffee mug, and where everyone can join. It's not mandatory; it's optional, and they can join and we talk just about stuff. But like, how was your dinner last night? Not about jobs. And I do
Yeah.
the same in the evening to get the people the possibility to fade out of work, where
Hmm.
you just first ask something that you want to share with what happened with you today, so that you have a conversation about like your day. But then usually that drifts into anybody seen that movie, or it gets more into a personal thing, so that it doesn't always feel like it's just work and then you shut off the camera and then there is a different life, but more kind of like helping people to glide in and glide out of that. And you need to have on sites to make that work for people. But this, to get this bond of like, that's someone that I personally know. If it's just a person on a camera, I can see that it's not easy.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like this, when you work in the office, like this coffee conversations, because people
Yeah,
always go to coffees, they always go to smoke cigarettes or something like that. They
yeah.
always have this conversation. And from my perspective, I believe that such interactions really build and make teams even closer so they can
Yes.
work so much better. So I like kudos to
It's
you for doing that.
it's such a difference of like working with that guy on the other side of the camera, or the one that I had this team building event. So
Yeah.
that's why they call team building events, because it's team building. So with which I drove a cart, or where I had where or we were at that bar and drank, and when you know something about them personally, it's a different, the whole conversation becomes a different question. It's not just like a task and work demand or something. It's that guy that I know that wants me to help him. And that's a
Yeah,
totally different
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Totally agree. And if your friend wanted to become a freelancer, what are top three things you'd advise them to consider before doing it?
So the first thing actually is there a market of what you want to freelance to? So are there other freelancers that are already doing it, so that you get an understanding of how much money you can make, what is your a proper day rate and things like that. For example, in programming, that's easy. There are tons of us. Other proficiencies could be different. The second is that 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 you should not get frightened when there is some time where you don't have a project. Use it
Yeah.
to go on holidays, do some travel, do some stuff. In IT, at least, even as it's now looking a bit worse, there's still a ton of work to do. Um, and that I remember, like when I started, I tried to do back-to-back projects, and that always was awful, because sometimes there was an overtime in the one before, and then I had to work 16 hours because I had two projects at the same time, and that was just not helpful. It's not good for your health, and you never go on holiday. And that's the third advice: is go on holidays. Don't get again anxious that you wouldn't get a new project, and therefore you're not going on a vacation or do something else. Have some leisure time. Um, I usually calculate over the year just with 9 months of having work. That's the tops maximum,
Hmm.
because the rest is you're either sick, or you're on holiday, or you're doing something, or there is no project. So calculating, when you think about your hourly rate, the days that you want to work, and calculating how much you could make in that year, only maximum calculate 9 months of work. Everything else is not real.
Got it. Florian, I wish to have the sky as the limit, but time is the limit. So the final question is, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
Whew. Nothing. I was just unfortunately lucky that everything turned out. So I didn't get in with a plan. It was more kind of by accident. And because someone offered me a project and I did it. And they only offered it me as freelance. And then I realized how fun that is, and that I earned more. And
and the rest is history.
And the rest is just as it happened. So, and I never had this is my plan. It just happened. So I can't say I would do anything different, because everything I did was because I wanted it that way.
Thank you so much, Florian, for sharing your challenges. Yeah, for sharing your challenges and your wisdom, and for having just such an open conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friends. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.